We've read the two books. One is from our theme, the Colossians one, and the other one is in Daniel. But before we go to that, I just want us to ask ourselves a question. What does it do to please God? My topic is living a life worthy of pleasing God. And my question is, what does it mean to live a life that pleases God? If you're like most people, or even like me, you may say, a life that pleases God. I live a life that pleases God. I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't go clubbing, I don't do all these sort of things people are doing there. And so many other things you might say. And you might say all these things, for sure they are important things. They are things that we know we should shy off from doing. On the other hand, to justify that you don't do all these things, drinking, smoking, adultery, all these things, you can say, I am a Christian, I attend church, I join the choir, I worship, I'm a melder, I'm describing myself. And I do all sorts of things to make sure the work of God is going on well. But does that really please God? Is that the only way that pleases God? We have read about three young men, 3 Hebrew boys who were taken captivity by King Nebuchadnezzar. Let me give you just a little overview of what happened before we get to the young men that we are going to base our topic on today. The King Nebuchadnezzar went to Jerusalem and took siege of the city, and he killed so many people. Thousands were killed of Jews, and thousands were brought to Babylon, together with all the gold things he stole to come and deposit in his gods in Babylon. We know Babylon was a pagan place. They didn't believe in God. So when he brought these people, out of them he told his officials, choose a few people from the ones we took captivity, intelligent ones, handsome. I don't know how handsome was coming into it, to be honest. But there are so many qualities he gave, as we have read, of the men that should be brought to the kingdom, to the empire, to serve him. And then he gave instructions. Teach them our laws, our rules, our wisdom. Teach them everything they need about us, our cultures, everything. Teach these young men that we are going to bring to the kingdom about how they can manage this place for 3 years. And then after that, they'll come and serve in my empire. So they were chosen. Among those who were chosen, there was Daniel, which we know about, Shadrach, which we have read about, Meshach, and Abednego. So there were 4 of them that are mentioned in the Bible, but I'm sure there were many more. But these men really believed in God. They trusted in God. If you go back a little bit on chapter 1, you'll see that these men were given they were told, the people who are the officials who were told to look after these men, they were told to give them the delicacies that the king was eating. You know, in a palace, being offered the food that the king is eating, who would refuse? But these 4 young men, they told the officials who were looking after them, please just give us water and vegetables, and then after a while, compare us with the ones who are eating the king's delicacies and see who is better than the other. So the officials were a bit scared. They said, well, if you are looking worse than the other people, we might be in trouble. They said, no, just give us a few days and see. And obviously they were given the few days and they were eating the vegetables and the water. And after a while, they were so much better looking, and their brains were better because of the way they were eating than any other. So after 3 years, then the king called them, and when he called them, before he delegated them the jobs to do, he asked them some questions. And he found out that these 3 men, they had 10 times better knowledge than the ones that were eating his delicacies. Why? Because God was with these men. He was looking after them. You are eating vegetables every day. I know there are some people who are vegetarians, but I don't know how many in our church are vegetarians. I'm not. So I know it's not easy, but they opted to eat the vegetables. So after that, they were given the jobs, the official jobs by the king to do in the empire. And they started working. They did very excellent jobs. They worked very well. Very, very well. But then halfway through, the king decided, being a pagan country, he decided he was going to build up a golden image, and everybody is going to worship it. And if you don't bow down to it, you'll be put in the fire. Fire that was really blaring. It was fire that was really big fire that you put in, you just burn. But what I tend to think, and this is my own thinking, these three men, they refused to bow down to this image. When the music was played, when all the instruments were being played, these three men, young men, refused to bow down to it. They did not want to sin to God. They wanted to walk God's way, as we are being reminded every day in our theme, walk God's ways, walk God's ways. And they decided they were not going to bow down. Come rain, come shine, they are not going to bow down. And truly to the fact, they did not bow down. However, like every institution, there were those who were working with them. And I tend to believe that they were a bit jealous of them because of the way they were intelligent, the way the king liked them. They were doing an excellent job. They had intelligence. If you remember, if you go a little bit back in chapter 2, you see Daniel was interpreting the dreams. So these people didn't like them at all. These foreigners, I'm sure they called them these foreigners. They didn't like them at all. So they went to the king and told the king, these men that have been brought to the empire to serve you, when the music starts, when the instruments are playing, they don't bow down unto the image, they don't worship your gods. And the king just called them and told them, Shadrach, Meshach, Abednego, is it really, really true that when the music is played, when the instruments are playing, you don't bow down to my golden image and to my gods? They said, yes, king, we do not. They didn't even beat about the bush. They just said, no, we don't. So the king told them, give them a chance, an opportunity. The decision has been made. I passed a decree that anybody who does not bow down to this image, if they don't do it, they'll be thrown into the fiery furnace that will be made. So they told the king, yes, we are aware of that. We know the consequences. But one thing we are telling you, king, and listen to us as well, king, very carefully. We are not going to bow down to the golden image, neither are we going to worship your gods. The God we serve is able to rescue us. And listen, king, again, even if he does not rescue us, even if our God does not rescue us, and he's more than able to rescue us, we shall not bow down to your gods. How many of us today can dare do such a thing? You can see a big fire here, and you're being told you'll be thrown there. All you need to do is to deny Jesus. Would you do it, or would you not do it? That's for you personally to decide. If you are faced with such a situation, what would you do? And true to the fact, the king took the challenge ahead, asked the strongest men he had in the army to tie them down and throw them into, and not only that, the fire that was normally a normal fire was to be made 10 times bigger than the normal one. But these men did not even budge. They could not compromise. They did not want to sin against God. They have been walking all their lives with God. They were following his way. They were following his will. They did not want to upset God in any way or to sin against God in any way. So the king chose the strongest men. so that they don't fall on the side. They go right inside the fire. And that is what happened. So they were thrown into the fire. But you know what? Whatever situation you are in, whatever problem you are in, Jesus is in it. When they got into the fire that had been done 10 times bigger than, I don't know if it's 7 or 10, I'm not 100% sure. When they got into the fire, there was a fourth man. And this king, as we've read, first and foremost, he had asked these people, which God will be able to save you? When he was talking to them, he was telling them, you either do it, because there's no God who can save you. But then suddenly, when they got into the fire, they were actually walking majestically in the fire. They were walking with a fourth man. And the fourth man looked like the Son of God. And who is the Son of God, church? Jesus. Jesus is in every situation you find yourself in. Don't ever compromise anything. We know as Christians, we are being called and increasingly pressured to bow down to the pressures of this world, and more so to the political correctness. There are so many things we are being told we can do, we cannot do, you can't do this. More so in this country. We are fine. I mean, I don't know how back home is. I don't think it's as harsh as here when it comes to political correctness, to some of the things that Christians are being affected with. But there's a lot of things that we are being affected with here. They are those ones we are pressured every time to silence the Christians. We are being silenced. We are being told you can't do this. You can't tell people about Jesus. You can't witness. You can't do this. And we are listening. We are listening. If Shadrach and Meshach and Abednego were to come to Britain today, what would they do? What truly would they do? Would they give up like we are because we are scared? I'm scared of losing my job. And true to the fact I am. And I'm sure you are. And you have the right to be scared because if we are in a foreign country. But remember, one day in a foreign country, these 3 young Hebrew boys, they were in a foreign country. They never bowed down to worship the God that was there, that they were being told to worship, or the golden image. They did not. So, as Christians, how are we to behave? How are we to get out of this? When we find ourselves in this fiery furnace of whatever problem, sometimes it could be you've got a family member who is sick, they've got cancer, terminal illness, or other illnesses, and you don't know what to do. What do you do? You may have that long list of things that are there that will affect you, that you are going through fire problems. How do you respond when you find yourself under attack from the enemy? What do you do? How are you to respond when you find yourselves in this fiery furnace? Maybe you have done something at work and you're in trouble. You are being called for discipline. What do you do? So the first thing you need to do when you are thrown into that fiery furnace is to keep walking through the fire. Just keep that word aside for now. Walking through the fire. Walking through the fire. Fires are not places to stop. You cannot stop inside a fire. You have to walk. You have to take action. You have to do something. You can't just stop. The king and those who are present saw men walking around in the fire. And the fourth man, as we have said, was Jesus. And Jesus is always there for us. He has promised us with his own words, I will never leave you, neither forsake you. In your problems, I will always be there. I will walk with you. But half the time, we tend to give up. But what I'm asking the church is, please do not quit or give up when you find yourselves in a fiery furnace, or when you find yourself being tested, or in a big problem. Do not give up. We see even people, even within the church, getting discouraged and they stop serving God because they are going through a trial and they feel God is not helping them. I'm doing all sorts of things. The list I said at the beginning, I'm a Christian, I'm in the church choir, I'm in praise and worship, I teach church school, I do all sorts of things in church, God. I go to Bible study, I read the word of God, I pray. But what does that help? Never give up. Continue moving, and soon you'll get that. Psalms 34:19 tells us or reminds us that many are the afflictions of the righteous, but God delivers them from all of them. You will go through afflictions, you'll go through problems, you'll go through trials, but remember, God is there and He's going to help you as long as you continue to trust in Him and to walk with Him. Never give up, keep on moving, and soon you'll get out of that situation. It's part of living in this broken world that trials come, sicknesses come, troubles come. You are not going to be free from this. You'll always have these problems around you. We will always have these problems around us. But how do we react when we are in such situations? It's part of being a Christian and resisting the call to compromise and seeing that persecution and ridicule comes. But what I would like to advise you is, don't stop walking with Jesus when you are going through a fiery trial. When you've got that problem, don't stop trusting God. Continue walking with Him. Don't give up. I've got a feeling that those three men, Hebrew boys, they were walking very closely to Jesus. If you remember Peter, when they saw a ghost walking through the water, and obviously Jesus revealed to them that it was He, and Peter said, "If it is you, dare me come." And Peter took actually that step of faith, came out of the boat, and started walking on the water. But the minute Peter turned his eyes off Jesus, he started to sink. Let's keep our eyes focused on Jesus. Whatever problem we are in, whatever situations we are in, let us keep our eyes focused on Jesus. Never take your eyes off Jesus, because you'll be lost. You'll sink, like Peter was trying to sink. Follow Jesus. In the book of Job 23:11, it says, Job in his fiery trial said, "My feet has closely followed his steps. I have kept to his way without turning aside." So, brethren, let's keep walking with Jesus at all times, in good times and in bad times, in problems, in trials. Let's continue to walk with Jesus. Now remember, I told you to just put aside the word through. Remember, the important word there is through. You are going through a fiery trial. You are going through a problem. Through means passing by. That problem you're having, you'll go through it. That sickness you have, you'll go through it. That problem you have at work, that challenge you're having, you'll go through it. Don't stop. Continue, and you'll get there. You aren't going into this fiery furnace to stay. To be honest, whatever problem we are in, nobody stays in a problem forever. We go through problems, difficult ones, challenging ones, but you don't stay there forever. You don't stay, you are just passing through. Remember, the songwriter said, "This world is not my home. I'm just passing through." We are passing through these problems. But as long as we keep on focusing our eyes on Jesus, we shall not sink. We shall not go down. We shall come out victorious. Amen. I want you to notice that these three guys had already made up their mind to keep walking, to keep serving the Lord, regardless of what happened. Remember, they told the king, "If you throw us into the fiery furnace, whatever you do to us, we are not going to worship your God. We are not going to bow down to this golden image you have made, king." So, even if he does not, king, we will still not bow down to you. I don't know what the future holds for you. I don't know what the future holds for me. But I've made up my mind, whatever comes, I'm going to keep on walking with Jesus. I am not going to leave Jesus. I have decided to follow Jesus. I have decided to walk with Jesus all the days of my life in this earth. And I pray, and I'm hoping that is the prayer for everybody in this sanctuary this afternoon. We are going to go whatever problem we are in with Jesus. We'll see him. He'll see us through to victory. Either way, we'll keep on walking with him. If a trial comes, don't immediately start thinking, why has God allowed it? Why? Why is he punishing me? Job questioned God quite a bit in the book of Job, which we are doing at the moment in Bible study. He questioned God a bit in regard to why he was in such a situation. But God had a very good reason. And finally, he was repaid double of what he had lost. Because one thing he said, naked I came and naked I'll leave. And I know my Redeemer liveth. And because my Redeemer liveth, I will live. And true to the fact, Job became even more prosperous than he was before, and we know how he ended up with double portion of what he had before. I'll say this, believers are not exempt from trouble and trials. It goes with life on earth. Don't be surprised if trouble comes, but don't stop trusting in God, who is able to deliver you out of every trial that come your way. You may be going through the fire right now, wondering how in the world God could turn away of this into something good for you. Well, maybe it's not just about you. Think of these people who had been taken captivity from Jerusalem to Babylon. For 70 years, they were going to be there. They were being mocked. Sing for us the songs of Zion. You remember by the rivers of Babylon, Psalms 137. Sing for us. They were being teased. They were being mocked. There's nothing they didn't go through, but they persevered until the 70 years were over. They were 70 years away from their home in Jerusalem, but they could point to this story and say, we know God delivers. He delivered Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego from the fiery furnace, and he will walk with us. He will deliver us as well. Someone could be watching you right now and wondering, surely you're not smelling of fire? You've just come out of that fire, and you're not smelling of it. How? Your clothes are not burned. How? You have an opportunity to tell them, I was in this problem, but I was not alone. I was not alone. Jesus was in it with me. And that is why you can't even smell a single thing on fire on me. You can't see my clothes are shining. The same way I went into that furnace is the same way I've come out. Because Jesus was there with me. So if we go through the fire, the Lord will be with us. The writer of Hebrews reminds us of God's promise. Again, I will never leave you, neither will I forsake you. When you pass through the water, through the river, through the fire, through the tornado, through that cancer problem you've been threatened with, or your family has been threatened with, through that disease that you've been threatened with, through that problem at work, God is going to be in it with you. There will be no way you'll not come out of it. Moses told Joshua as he prepared to go into the promised land, the Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Don't be afraid, don't be discouraged. That is in Deuteronomy 31:8. I believe that is his word for us today. The Lord is going before us and he will be with us. Whatever problem we are in, God will be there with us. He will never leave us. He will never leave us at all. He will walk with us. He is with you in the fire today, and he's going to bring you through, shining like pure gold, tested and proven through the fire. You will have greater faith for the journey ahead and greater confidence in God. He has brought you this far. We know there are so many problems going on today, There is war in the world. There is poverty. There is economic crisis. But we are still soldiering on. Last year is not going to be this year. Last year was not easy for anybody. But I'm sure this year will be a year with a difference. Only if we continue to trust in God. And let us not be discouraged. Let's look around and realize that the fourth man is in the fire with us when we are going through that fire. So then, as I conclude, what can we learn in this story of these three Hebrew young men in regard to a life pleasing God? 1, never compromise your faith, however pressed you are. These three Hebrew boys, we know they didn't compromise. Despite being thrown into the fire, they opted to go into the fire. They trusted God to deliver them, but they were also determined to remain faithful to God, regardless of the consequences. As we now know, God rescued them. In fact, the last verse of the Bible, verse 30 we read, it said they were promoted. By the time they came out of that fire, not only did King Nebuchadnezzar give instructions that anybody who talked anything bad about the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego shall be cut into pieces, he also promoted them. See, when you continue to trust God and trust Him fully, and know that you are trusting Him, and He's the God who is leading you, you'll come out being promoted. Job was promoted. He got double portion. Our God is faithful. He's a true God. He's a faithful God. And He'll do anything to us. He's looking for us just to be faithful to Him, and He'll be faithful to us. So the second one is always walk with Jesus. Never take your eyes off Jesus. Whatever happens, never take your eyes off Jesus. Meshach, Abednego, and Shadrach, they trusted God fully and would not do anything to sin against Him. They had been walking in His ways and His will even when in a pagan land. They did not care where they were. They did not desert the God they had come with from Jerusalem. Let's not leave that God from Kenya we came with. You know, I think I've shared this before. When I came to this country at first, I came here as a born-again Christian, and I found this country really ridiculous. The Christians, us Christians, the pastors, everybody, we used to go to pub together and drink. I wasn't doing it, but I know people were doing it. And then I was working in a place where my boss, she was actually a Kenyan who owned a care home. She had employed me. She really was a proper alcoholic. And she would drink throughout the day at work. And she would call myself with another Kenyan lady who was working with me to go and drink with her. And I told her I cannot drink. First and foremost, not only am I a Christian, but I can't drink when I'm at work, even if I wasn't, because I want to safeguard my PIN. I don't want the people to come and find me drunk and then take away my PIN. And you know what she told me? You're pretending to be a Christian holier than thou. You know the way we talk when you want to talk badly to somebody. If the pastors are drinking with us, who are you? Imagine how frustrated you can be. You're in a foreign country. She had given me the work permit to work here. She had sponsored me. And honestly, there's nothing I could do but just to keep quiet and continue trusting in God. And within a few months, I got another job, which I was never frustrated. So the last and final point I want to share in regards to these boys is keep on walking, even at the midst of a fiery furnace, as God will see you through it. Always trust God, as He has promised, that He will never leave you or forsake you. Psalms 23 says, even though I walk through the valley of shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, because you are there with me, your rod and staff, they comfort me. So He's going to be there with us in every situation. However difficult it is, you can imagine you are in a dark place, and Jesus is walking with you. If you are alone, how will you make it? These three Hebrew boys met Jesus waiting for them in the fire. Remember that when Satan comes in like a flood, the Spirit of God will raise a standard against him.